time to take a stand and stop the sexualization of our children. Action for Canada has created a notice of liability to assist you. The title of this NOL is Facilitating in Exposure of Minors to Sexually Explicit Educational Resources, Activities, and/or Events. The United Nations has mandated that all member nations implement the Comprehensive Sexuality Education Resource. CSE is a learning platform that was developed within the context of a program developed by UNESCO. This so-called resource sexualizes children at the earliest ages possible, and it's no surprise that it's causing great harm to our children, as well as attacking the traditional family unit. According to Section 163.1 and Section 152 of the Criminal Code, as well as the Canadian Centre for Child Protection, it's a criminal offence to sexualize and exploit children. Here at Action for Canada, we've been working to expose this evil agenda and to empower parents, grandparents, and concerned citizens to take a courageous stand. In an effort to assist you, we've created a page on our website where you will find an incredible assortment of information on this issue, including the various programs that have been introduced into our schools. Beyond the Basics is the resource used in Nova Scotia, WIN Sex Ed is used in Ontario, CSE is used in Manitoba, and SOGI 123 is used by the rest of the provinces. By introducing these programs into our educational system, our children and youth are being exposed to sexually explicit pornographic materials in the form of books, magazines, and comic strips. Our kids are also encouraged to become members of organizations that promote sexually deviant behavior and the exploitation of minors. Be sure to take advantage of this notice of liability, which will advise teachers, librarians, trustees, ministers, etc., that they will be held personally liable for exposing minors to any form of pornography or sexually explicit material, as well as any activities or organizations promoting sexual deviancy and the exploitation of minors. By using this valuable NOL, you have the ability to demand that the CSE learning resources be immediately and completely removed from libraries and the education system. That all of the books listed, including titles by the same authors, be immediately removed, and that all educational facilities, including libraries, cease and desist promotion of any and all activities, including performers and clubs that exploit our innocent, impressionable, and vulnerable children and youth. Knowing is not enough. You must take action. Here are some powerful actions you can take to protect our youth, no matter your age or station in life. Pull your children out of public schools and universities. Run, facilitate, join, or help with a homeschool group. Get involved in writing letters and serving notices of liability. Run for office as a school board trustee, mayor, or city councillor. Connect with an Action for Canada chapter near you. We cannot ignore this message. Our children and youth are being subjected to twisted ideologies using social justice as a means to indoctrinate and groom them, and we must protect them. Thank you for taking a stand to protect kids. If you like what we're doing at Action for Canada, please consider making a donation to support our ongoing work. And be sure to join a chapter near you. God bless you, and God bless Canada. Hello, we're so glad you've joined us for tonight's show. A warm welcome to you. Our guest speaker this evening is our good friend, Maxime Bernier, and the title of tonight's show is Budget, Populism, and Bernier's Vision for Canada. It's November 26th, 2025, and this is the Empower Hour. Action for Canada is a national movement reaching out to millions of Canadians and uniting our voices in opposition to the destructive policies tearing at the fabric of our nation. Through call to action campaigns, we educate, equip, mobilize, and empower citizens to take action. We are committed to protecting faith, family, and freedom. Freedom of speech, thought, belief, and the right to life, liberty, and security of the person is guaranteed in Canada. We want to acknowledge everyone who supports Action for Canada and thank you for choosing to partner with us. We invite you to make a one-time contribution or become a monthly supporter as we continue to bring solutions and hope to our nation. Head over to our website for more information. If you're joining us for the first time, it's my pleasure to introduce you to Tanya, the founder and leader of Action for Canada. For over 10 years, Tanya has been focusing on faith, family, and freedom, and she and her team are working to bring awareness to the many critical issues facing our nation. Please join me with a big thank you and a warm welcome for Tanya Gaw. Hello, Tanya.
Hi, Heather. Thank you so much. I have a couple of really important updates, and then Heather will come back on. I can't wait to get Maxime on. We're going to have a great conversation, so stay tuned. I'll just share my screen and we'll get right to this. One thing that I do before I give the update on a couple of the legal actions is to let you know that this week we found out we were checking out some of the Stripe information, and it ends up that some of our donors who have signed up with Stripe, put their Visa information in, and think that they're actually donating to Action for Canada on a regular basis are being blocked. And I'm hearing more about this, that the banks are interfering with individuals' financial systems. And a couple of weeks ago, we had Steve Merrill on, and a lot of people are buying silver right now. And he was also bringing to our awareness that the banks were delaying transfers of funds and even shutting down people's bank accounts because of the fact that they are moving their savings out of the bank. So this is something to be aware of, but this was new to us. So if you are donating to Action for Canada, if you could please check your transactions to make sure that those donations are actually moving through the system. And as always, we are so grateful to those of you who are so supporting the work. It's going to be a great show next week. I'll get to that in a moment, but you'll see the work that Action for Canada is doing and the effectiveness of it, and mobilizing the citizens is so important as well. But we can't do this. We can't do this without your financial support. So please continue to support us, and please make sure that those funds are actually, those transactions are actually taking place. All right, so legal action. I keep promising you, we're going to court. We're going to court. We filed last December our newly amended notice of civil claim. This is regarding the COVID-19 scam, and we've taken action against the BC and federal government, and ours is one of the only cases that's still moving forward. And when we filed the new notice of civil claim, the defendants of course came forward with another motion to strike. We pressed them throughout the spring and into late spring, and the next thing you know, it's summer, and so they say, yeah, you know what, you have to come back to us in September to book an appointment for the fall. So we did that, and we had a hearing booked for October 20th. And then all of a sudden the lawyers were on strike. I don't know if that's coincidence or by design, but that happens to be the case. And so then we had to call by November 12th to book for January. Rocco got in there and he called right away, but there were no available dates. And now we have to wait for till December 12th in order to book for February. So please pray for us. Pray that those doors are going to open and we can get our case moving forward. Enough of the delays. We have the evidence and the proof to show that these people have committed horrendous crimes against humanity, that they have, effectively interfered with our freedoms and democracy, and people need to be held to account. Now, the second update I want to give is, as you may know as well, last December, I end up receiving a letter that I'm going to be sued for defamation by drag queen Frida Wales. This is his multiple different personas. And by April, I had provided an affidavit with all of the details of the activities of Tyson Cook that he freely has on the internet. And so now he's saying that the everything that I've published is online is harassing, disparaging, and defamatory. And I was like, well, and it's false information. I'm like, well, hold on a minute. This was everything that he had proudly posted. And so anyways, once the information was put forward, and within 24 hours, his lawyer contacted my lawyer and said, yeah, you know what, can we pause this indefinitely? Because they just couldn't believe the evidence and information we had. So by September, they again wanted us to take down the information from our website. I refused because it's a matter of public interest, and we hit them with a SLAP application in September. So if you scroll down the page that we have here, if you go to legal action, you can see that right here, legal. You can come up with either of these cases, click on the link, and you'll be kept up to date. And so as of November 6th, we now have a hearing booked for 2 days, in the week of June 29th, 2026. Again, talk about the delays. I don't know what they're going to come up with. They have no evidence, and I think it's pretty clear that I haven't committed any case of defamation. And so we'll look forward to June of 2026 and bringing this to court. I wouldn't mind having a jury. Let's just expose what these individuals are doing and expose what's happening with our kids. We need to be on the front line protecting our children. And that's what Action for Canada is doing. Now, next week, speaking of that, I've spent about $70,000 this year. Action for Canada has on legal costs between these two cases, and we need to do some fundraising. And so my dear friend Danielle Pastilli is going to join me on the show next week, and she's actually going to be hosting. She's going to be interviewing me. We're going to talk about all of our amazing victories that we've had this past year and the initiatives that we're going to commence in the new year. So you'll please want to join us for that. Now, why are we doing all of this? Because you know what? We love freedom and we love our country, and we can't be silent because the whole point is that the squeaky wheel gets the attention. And we're getting loud, we're getting squeaky, and we're going to get squeakier every year as we push back and take back more ground from the enemy. Now, what you may have heard is that Tara Armstrong, I'll just slip over here to Dallas Brody as well. They are powerhouses. They are MLAs in the BC legislature, and they are calling out all of the corruption. Now, all of a sudden, there is news that there's going to be a recall petition in the new year. So I posted about this. These posts are doing pretty good, and they're really picking up steam. They have a tremendous amount of support. Just a small little group of them are on there, complaining or making negative comments about them, but it's very small percentage. The majority shares the position that they're taking, whether it's on the Indian land grabs, enough of the Truth and Reconciliation, enough of all of these flags that are flying, the LGBTQ flags and any others, the Palestinian flags. It's all got to come to an end. And so they're really working hard. They need our support. And the reason I'm bringing them up is because it's not just in British Columbia. So the other side is terrified of the truth. They've had a good reign for about 10 years, a good run at it, but now things are turning around and our people are getting elected. And the reason I'm highlighting this is because we have Maxime Bernier coming on from the People's Party of Canada on the show tonight. I refer to this as the populist movement that is succeeding in other countries. And how do we get this to work in Canada? Well, it starts at all levels of government by getting behind active elected officials like Tara Armstrong and Dallas Brody. But Alberta is also going through the same thing. We've had a major win in Alberta where we lobbied the government a year ago. We provided them a binder of information, 3-inch binder of information of the harms, the measurable harms that are happening to children through SOGI 123 and the sexually explicit and pornographic books. The government has agreed with us. They came out and made bold decisions late spring to start removing these books. And as I've reported previously, the unions are backing recall initiatives in Alberta as well. So the news on November 26th was that there was 14 UCP MLAs targeted, but I did a little further digging today and came up with this: Operation Total Recall. They want to recall every single MPP in the UCP, and they are very strategic about it. So if you're going to consider sitting at home while all of this is going on, you're going to get what you're going to get. We need everybody mobilized and everybody active. There needs to be flyer campaigns throughout these constituencies to notify the voters as to what actually is the reason. It's not the withstanding clause. It wasn't just the use of the notwithstanding clause against, it says teachers and Alberta workers, but they had to get the teachers back to work because the unions intentionally were not taking a very good offer because strategically they want to drag the UCP down. And they put them in a position where they weren't going to affect children's education any longer. And they said, look, you guys need to get back to work. We've given you a very good offer, a very generous offer. And of course, the media, CBC News, the woke media is all coming with the same angles that the unions are supporting. And of course, the activists that are behind these petitions to recall these candidates that were fairly elected in a democracy. So this is the next level of attack as they lose ground. We're going to see more and more of this happening. You need to be aware of it, and you need to join Action for Canada and become mobilized. We provide you resources, we educate you, we equip you, but you know what? It's not going to happen with the small army that we've got. As I was saying, we don't just report the news and what's going on. We actually provide actions and activities to get you mobilized. And I was so happy with the response. We always, when we send a call to action out asking you to write a letter, we always send a template letter. You simply copy it and you paste it and you provide it to the emails that we actually provide you. It's so easy. It just takes about 5 minutes of your time. And through this, I actually got a personal email back and saying, yes, you know what, we understand these concerns and that the government, the Alberta government was taking actions to reel the unions in. So there will be more about that, but stay tuned, stay and get involved because these elected officials, they go where the votes are. So if the squeaky 0.1% can bring in radical LGBTQ activism that leads to mutilating our children and the mass immigration that's destroying our sovereignty, then think about what the majority of Canadians can do if we really rise up together and unite our voice. And then lastly, I just wanted to bring this to your attention. There was this headline news. I hate the word secularism. I hate anything that ends in an ism, because that strays away from the foundation of this nation, which is built on Judeo-Christian biblical principles. And the UN, the United Nations, WEF, are going after the Western European Christian nations because we are the only ones that offer freedom and democracy. So our doors have been open to immigration. They're transplanting here their failed foreign systems of governments, whether it's the Hindus, Sikhs, or Muslims, even the Buddhists. You hear about all the land grabs and the things going on in the Maritimes, and it's enough is enough. But now it's the pendulum is swinging, and it's swinging too far because they're refusing to name the problem. And the issue in Quebec, what they really want to go after is Islam. And they're naming Islam in the United States. It's no longer about separating moderate Muslims from Islam. You look at the Quran and the Hadiths, and they all say the same thing. They want to infiltrate, they want world dominance, and they will do it through jihad, and they will do it through violence. And so this bill now says it will ban prayer in schools, restrict offering of religion-based meals. Well, fair enough, but name it. We're going to ban Muslim prayer in schools because what we need to do in Canada right now is we need to bring Christian prayer back into schools. And they're doing that in the United States because they see the necessity of it. This is Canada. This is our culture. This is not a multicultural nation. And where it says in the charter, Canada is founded on the of God and the principles of law, supremacy of God and the rule of law. The supremacy of God is the Christian God, and the rule of law ends in a colon. And that means that everything that follows, every section that follows, must apply to the rule of law and the supremacy of our God, the God of the Bible. And that means multiculturalism. We may have many different cultures, multiple cultures, but everybody coming into Canada needs to embrace our foundation. And it's through education that we learn this. We are not a secular nation. We are not a multicultural nation. And we certainly are not a post-national state with no core identity. So if you believe in this, then we need to get serious about supporting Action for Canada, about supporting this nation. We have a resource that we've created that can just bellowing from the rooftops that Canada is a Christian nation. And I have created this resource that provides you the rule of law, Supreme Court rulings, what's in our Constitution, the coronation oath, what's scripture that's all over our parliament buildings to prove that we are a nation built on biblical principles. And that gives you the freedom to believe or not to believe in Canada. Unlike the other countries that I've mentioned that go under different belief systems, where if you don't align with their belief systems, that is either persecution or death that will follow you. So now on to the show. I want to bring Maxime Bernier on. At this point, I am looking forward to our conversation and just stopping share. So Heather, would you come on, please, and introduce our guest?
Thank you, Tanya. We are so pleased that our good friend, Maxime Bernier, is joining us on tonight's Empower Hour. Maxime is the leader of the People's Party of Canada, which he founded in September 2018 when he realized the Conservative Party was no longer conservative. Under his leadership, the PPC brings common sense solutions to the challenges facing everyday Canadians, and he's committed to individual freedom, personal responsibility, fairness, and respect. Will you all please help me welcome Maxime Bernier to tonight's Empower Hour. Welcome, Maxime.
Hello, I'm very pleased to be with you. Thank you very much.
Super. Thank you, Heather, and welcome, Maxime. I have been looking forward to the show tonight because, man, this has been quite a year since the election took place in the spring, and a very narrow near election after the budget that we seem to have dodged here. I'm disappointed, actually. I would have been, I know it's Christmas coming up, but I would have preferred election than 4 more years of Mark Carney. And so I think where I would like to start is with the budget, and because that really set things off. I mean, it was a razor thin 168 vote with a projected $78.3 billion deficit. And I don't even have words to think that they didn't delay the budget until the spring, that they decided to go into this direction. So I'm just going to stop talking right now because I'm going to hand it over to you. And I want to know your feelings about the day that they tabled the budget and the fact that we're not moving into an election.
Yeah, thank you, Tanya. I'm very happy and very pleased to be with you. It's always a nice opportunity to have a discussion with you. And we, as you know, share the same ideas and the same vision for this country. That being said, after the election, I must say that that election was a little bit disappointing because, as you know, that was not a real election. What I mean by that is, that was mostly a referendum on who will be the best leader, Poilievre or Carney, to deal with President Trump. That was all about, the relationship with the US, and we didn't have time to discuss the real issues like mass immigration. And, it was not in our favor as a young political party because we know that 65% of Canadians are saying no to mass immigration, and they want Canada to start the deportation of all illegals. So for us, knowing that we are the only national political party in Canada that is speaking about that and agree with that, we said, okay, that will be an election on mass immigration that will help us. But no, that was not that. And as you know, also, what our opponents are doing, like you said before, they try to recall good politicians in Canada because they don't want to have a debate. They don't want to have a real discussion, that they try to censor real members of parliament who fought for Canadians and put Canadians first. And so that's because we are successful, because we know and they know that the truth will always prevail in all these big challenges that we have in this country. So what they did to us, the People's Party, we were supposed to participate in the national debates. And they create a new rule to be sure that we won't be able to participate. They did the same for Elizabeth May for the Green Party, but that's not a real democracy when you are doing that. So the fight is important. And as you know, Tanya, every year we have a budget, usually in spring, and Carney didn't want to table a budget. He just did that in September. But what I didn't like is the opposition parties, the NDP, the Bloc Québécois, the Conservative, they didn't have the courage to say to Canadians the truth. We don't like the budget, but we will vote for the budget because we don't want an election. That's what they did. They were scared to have an election, but they didn't want to tell the truth. They were playing games. So now, because of the Conservatives, the Bloc Québécois, and the NDP, the budget passed, and maybe the next opportunity will be in 1 year to defeat that government. But the budget, it's horrible. Like you said, about $78 billion deficit. And as you know, the Trudeau government doubled our debt in 10 years. Mm-hmm. And now you have Carney in that budget, he said that he won't balance the budget. He won't do that. He will have deficit every year for the next 4 years, and he will add about $322 billion on our debt. So now the debt to GDP, the real number, because the government said the number it's about 60%. No, the real number is 110% debt to GDP. Like France, like in the US, it's about 120% debt to GDP. So we cannot afford that. We're bankrupt, and is spending more and more money. And he's telling us that 78 billion deficit of this year will stimulate the economy. That will do the opposite. That will be a sedative for the economy. And I will explain why. Because last week, the Bank of Canada issued a press release, and you can find that on the website, the Bank of Canada. And so they said this year, beginning in December, the Bank of Canada will buy Canadian bonds. So to finance the deficit. Why the Bank of Canada is doing that? Because the risk on our debts is huge, and private investors are not happy with the yield that they have on our bonds. So the interest rate on our bonds is too low for the risk. So we don't have enough private investors who are ready to buy our Canadian bonds and finance the deficit. So the Bank of Canada step in, and what they're doing, we call that monetize the debt. They will print money out of thin air to buy these Canadian bonds, and they will create inflation like they did during the COVID hysteria. The federal government said, I will give money to Canadians, but we don't have that money. We'll do a deficit. The Bank of Canada financed that deficit and printed money out of thin air. And a couple of months later, we had that inflation. What I'm telling you, Tanya, is the inflation will come. So the federal government, instead of taxing Canadians, they're telling us, keep your money in your own pockets. We won't tax you more for that deficit, but you won't be able to buy the same amount of goods and services with that money. Your purchasing power will go down and the inflation will go up. That is the result of that budget, but nobody is speaking about that. And to solve that is to balance the budget in 1 year. And we are able to do that by cutting foreign aid, by cutting all the subsidies to big businesses, by cutting civil servant, having a very small government in Ottawa. Like that, you balance the budget, and after that, you lower taxes. So just in conclusion, this budget was a disaster for us, and Canadians will pay the price in a couple of months with high inflation.
Maxime, thank you for providing the information on the banks as well. I mean, so many people are concerned and projecting that the banks are absolutely going to collapse, and that's why there is this push to buy silver. Gold is pretty much outpriced for the average person, but silver is at a premium right now, even though we're up to, I haven't looked lately, but it was up $70 or so when I last looked, and this is going to be what brings people security when the banks crash. And I remember 10 years ago when I was talking to Liberal leader Ken Hardy, who happened to be in my riding, and it was on the marijuana issue and several other issues, and we're modeling things after Venezuela. And I was naive back then to just really not understand what the government had done when they infiltrated in Venezuela and turned it into a socialist, impoverished state. But they did that by pouring, the money outside of the country. I still believe that this is all by design. Like Mark Carney is supposed to be this financier extraordinaire, so clever, and yet he's bankrupt the UK with these fake green initiatives, and he's pouring money out of the country. Trudeau did a massive, as you say, he's driven us to the bottom of the G7, and this is where we are right now, where our kids cannot afford, to buy homes, and it's hard to balance a budget in order to buy groceries and have a vehicle. So I appreciate. I feel like I see what they're doing down in the United States and how Trump got in there and he's cutting all of this radical woke spending on, for instance, LGBTQ initiatives, CRT, and I would imagine that those would be at the top of your list to slash all of those costs. And correct me if I'm wrong, that is what you would do, but that you'd probably go after all of the money that's going towards these UN and green initiatives as well. Is that correct?
Oh yes, oh yes. We'll cut the money that the federal government is giving to the UN. Why? Because the UN is a dysfunctional, woke organization, a socialist organization, not in line with our values. So we'll save a lot of money there. And all these, independent organizations that are supposed to be independent, but they received money from the federal government to promote their radical ideology, like, wokeism, DEI. We will cut all that funding. And what Trump is doing in the US, he is doing the cultural war and is winning that war. What is more difficult for Trump right now is the economy, because when he was elected a year ago, the economy was not going in the right direction in the US. He's trying to do his best, but that will be very difficult. And in US also, you have that inflation. And that's why gold and silver is going up, because in all the Western countries, France, UK, Canada, US, all these major Western countries have huge deficit and huge debt that they cannot afford. And that's why now people are seeing that, and they're going to gold to protect their purchasing power, or silver. And you're right. And it's sad that, we are not saying that to Canadians. The best way to protect them from the monetary reset that will happen, it's a question of time, is to try to buy gold. But as you know, it's a little bit expensive, but silver is not that expensive, and they will keep their purchasing power.
Yeah, as they have throughout history, it's really the way to go. And when I hear about these bonds and the cash that they're printing, instead of them wisely buying silver and gold, they've already sold pretty much everything off, to the best of my knowledge. And so that's why I say this is by design. They want to collapse our financial system so that the globalists can come in and govern Canada and France and all of these other nations where they are succeeding. And so we really, really need the populist movement to advance in Canada. And we really, we dodged an early election. I just see that everything was upended on the political map if we had gone forward with an election in December. So with the populist movement, I think of how do you pronounce his name? Bukele in El Salvador, Milei in Argentina, and Meloni in Italy have delivered like mandate-shaking wins by tackling corruption, borders, sovereignty head on, and it's the popular vote. And so, what unique barriers do you think, like the media bias or vote splitting, have kept Canadian populism from similar breakthroughs? And how is the PPC adapting to this?
Yes, you're right about that. If also you can add UK with Nigel Farage,
Yep.
and it's the same political system than us, first past the post. And Nigel at the last election with 16% of the vote, he was able to elect 7 MPs. But now, a couple of months later, in the polls in UK, he is ahead. And if there's a general election in UK today, Nigel Farage will be the prime minister. So, but the election in UK will be in 2 years or 3 years. But that being said, the populist movement is growing in UK, in Europe, and here in Canada, we are the only populist political party. And as you know, our time will come, but also what the right and the conservatives in the right, supposed to be in the right, and the liberals, they're doing everything to be sure that we don't have visibility, that, they try to kill the People's Party when we started the party. I don't know if you remember that, but in 2019, we had a position on immigration. We wanted a debate on immigration, and we said at that time a maximum of 150,000 a year. And now our position, it's a moratorium because, like you said, that mass immigration is destroying the social fabric of our country. And at that time, the conservative and the liberals, they were saying that we were racist and xenophobe because we were telling the truth to Canadians. And the Conservative Party paid a consultant and spent $160,000 in 2019 to discredit the People's Party. So that's what's happening in our country. But I believe, Tanya, that, the next election in Canada, I hope it will be sooner than later. So our next step, like I said, it will be next fall, and the People's Party will be ready. The challenge that we had at the last election, we didn't have a full slate of candidates. And so this time we are working hard, and I can tell you that we have right now 70% of our candidates ready if there's an election tomorrow. And we'll have that full slate before October next year.
Yeah, I know that you've really had a lot of obstacles to overcome since you launched the party, and Action for Canada has been right there doing calls to action to help support you as far as Elections Canada was concerned, and trying to shift the goalpost constantly so that you wouldn't be able to attend the debates. And then as well, when the Conservative Party paid, I can't remember that fella's name.
Kinsella.
Yes, that's right. So that's right, Kinsella, so that he couldn't just to undermine you, and so there's been a lot of nasty attacks. And then during the last election, the Carney tried to take on some of the conservative topics in order to water down what the conservatives were lobbying on or standing on going into the election, and it was so weak, and the whole thing shifted to addressing Trump and it should have been addressing Trump and the tariffs and supporting and saying, what do we need to do as a nation to be a good partner to the United States? Because the United States was right regarding the fact that we've become, a terrorist playground, and we are a threat to the United States. We see everything coming out right now about the fentanyl crisis and how we pose a risk there to the US as well. And so it was really poor politics, as always, on Pierre Poilievre's part. And, if there was some redeeming factor about the Conservative Party, I would say it. But I'm just so disappointed in the last 10 years, I've just given up in every way of trying to reach out to them. I even want an e-petition I've got ready right now to designate the Muslim Brotherhood as a terrorist group. And currently, I can't find a conservative MP that is willing to sponsor it. But I'm going to continue because, as you know, the governor of Texas, Governor Abbott, he himself and his team designated the Muslim Brotherhood and CARE as a terrorist group. They're just in the process. They've apprehended and are deporting the head of CARE and Ted Cruz. Senator Ted Cruz in 2015 had tabled a bill to designate the Muslim Brotherhood. It didn't go anywhere. So this year he tabled again. Marco Rubio was supporting it. And this last week, Trump has come out and there are multiple chapters of the Muslim Brotherhood that they're going to designate as a terrorist group and then continue to move forward. Even though there's been some criticism about it being certain chapters, I think it should be Muslim Brotherhood across the board. But this is a time for us to be aligning with the United States in the best interest of our countries, our sovereignty, and our citizens. So where do you stand on this critically important issue? One, in aligning with the United States and President Trump and the good policies that he's putting forward in border security and sovereignty, but and then, however, whatever order on the Islamic invasion of our countries and that growing threat as well.
I must say, Tanya, that you're doing a very good job on that, educating and informing Canadians about what is happening with these Islamists and, the political ideology of Islamism. And so you cannot, if you're a democratic country based on the supremacy of God and the rule of law, you cannot have a movement in your country that will promote Islamism. And that's happening in our country. And yes, we are looking right now what President Trump is doing and other countries also are doing in Europe. And the People's Party will have a policy on that, a written policy sooner than later. And I'm very happy that actually right now in French, in Quebec, that debate is happening right now at the provincial level. Some politicians are saying, that's the Islamization of Quebec. And so the debate is there, but it's the same all across the country. And that's why what you said just a little bit before with the new legislation in Quebec at the National Assembly, they want to be sure that what, these radical Muslims were doing in Montreal, in front of our cathedral in the old Montreal, praying in the street, that won't happen anymore. And, all these radical Islam that are, in our school and teaching, they won't have the right to have a burqa or a veil or anything. So that's a nice first step. But we need to do that all across the country. And the leadership must come from the federal government. That's why we will put pressure and use your work to write our policy and to be sure that, we do what is right for Canadians, because our motive, our mission is to put Canadians first and our country first. And that is not a slogan. That is the reality. If you look at our platform, no more money to Ukraine, putting Canada first, not Ukraine, putting Canadian first, not migrants, not foreigners, with our, moratorium on immigration, starting the deportation. So, and the way to put Canadian first is to be sure to explain to Canadians that Islamism is an ideology that is working against our values.
Across the board. And Maxime, I'm just so grateful. I feel like Action for Canada has always been at least a year ahead of the curve. And but Maxime, you and the People's Party is right there beside us at this point. We'd put these ideas out there, and now it's not even a matter of saying, "Hey, Maxime, where do you stand on this?" Because I know your position, and we understand it. You and I have had conversations previously about Islam, and you've come. I don't want to even say full circle. It's a matter of being educated. It's a matter of knowledge. And that's our responsibility with Canadians, because we've been so dumbed down by the media and by the government. And it has been this military style warfare, psychological warfare, in order to get us to accept this cultural suicide. And we need to be patriots. We need to love Canada so much that compromise is not a good thing when we're compromising the values and the principles that we're working in Canada. So why should we be accommodating, immigrants who are coming to Canada? It's like, no, as I said previously, we are a Judeo-Christian nation. It's a fact. And all of our founding documents point in that direction. It's the evidence and the proof that we need. And so it is not unreasonable that when people come here, they want to take that part of the charter out and say, look, this is a multicultural nation. We get to come here and celebrate our culture. And so this Sikh was just in Parliament. He's an MP, he can hardly speak English. He's a Liberal MP, and he was making some announcement about glorifying some Sikh individual in our Parliament. This is not a Sikh nation. The Sikhs didn't build this nation. Muslims didn't build this nation. Hindus didn't build this nation. All right. It's almost like that's supposed to be hate speech and an offense to speak the facts. And it's like, I want everybody speaking the facts. And we need to elect people who understand this, who are going to get into office and hold dear and true to this. And let's take Canada back.
Yeah, and I want to say you're absolutely right about that. And I want to say, Tanya, to your viewers, the fight that you did in the past were very important. You started the fight with us against mass immigration. And at that time, they were saying you're racist. And now they cannot say that anymore. They are not going there to have a moratorium. But now we open the debate, and we have that debate on mass immigration in the mainstream media. It's because of people like you. It's because of your organization. We were able to move the Overton window on mass immigration. We don't have the solution from the federal government right now. We know what is the solution, but it will come. It's a nice progress. And thank you to Action for Canada. The other nice progress is on abortion. I didn't have the right to speak about abortion in 2019. They said, oh, the mainstream media were saying, Bernier, you're a man, you cannot speak about that. And no, there's no late-term abortion in this country. You are lying to Canadians. But now, most people understand that killing unborn babies, it's a murder that must be illegal, that must be criminal. And last week, we had an editorial in the National Post asking for a law on abortion. That's another progression, because you had the courage of your conviction at Action Canada. Speak and inform Canadians about these two. I'm just picking two important files, but that's what you're doing. And us as a political party, we're trying to bring that, like you, at the national political level. So we are winning the debate of ideas. And that's why you said in the beginning, they're more aggressive. Now they have other tricks, like the recall of politicians, censoring politicians, putting legislation in place to censor us, like Bill C8 and C9. They try to use, that's the last thing that they can do. But, it's showing us that they're not able to debate. They don't want to debate because we are winning the argument. Common sense and truth based on facts and science will always prevail, and our time will come, I can tell you that. And the People's Party will be there when Canadians are ready.
I love it, Maxime. And I just really want what we're saying to impact our viewers to know that I talk about the squeaky wheel is the one that gets the attention, but that how important our voices are, that we have the opportunity to help form policy when we approach leaders like yourself in a reasonable way with the evidence and the information that's needed to move in that direction, whatever it may be, whether it's on abortion issue or whether it is on immigration, protecting our borders, and the LGBTQ activism. Many people, again, in that area a decade ago felt compelled, out of compassion. Again, compassion is dangerous if it's not used correctly, right? And there's not a proper understanding as to the motives of the people that are moving it. Whenever you see somebody self-victimizing, you need to immediately ask, what is really going on behind the scenes, because you don't victimize people in order to help them. You build them up so that they could achieve more than they could ever imagine. And that's what we want to see happening with all of those that have been victimized. But at the core, we need to be uncompromising. We need to stop accommodations, and we need to just stop the woke warfare. And it comes through, as the PPC has always said, through common sense. And that's what's lacking. Now, we talk about censorship as well in these bills. And where I see these bills going is that it's going to end up in the courts. If they do pass, it's 100% in violation of the Constitution. There's going to be constitutional challenges, and they're going to lose again. So I would just say to everybody, do not comply. That silly NDP, what is her name? Gazin, and she's putting forward that bill C-453 or something to make it hate speech and worth jail time if you are guilty of denialism. And it's like, well, even in that, we're going to end up going to court. You're going to have to show us the bodies. The graves are empty. 87% of Indigenous Indian men are the ones that are committing crimes against their own people, and we're not going to go back to the white colonialists that have made them alcoholics for the last 150 years. It's time to stop the victimization and to move forward. I'm certainly not responsible for anything that happened 150 years ago, but I am going to continue to build this great nation that all of them, had they appreciated it, have had the benefit, to enjoy. And I think there needs to be a real reset of our thinking in order to get society, moving forward together and celebrating what it is that we have been gifted with.
Yeah, no, you're right about that. They didn't find any graves in Kamloops, and, they didn't find any bodies. And I said that, I tweeted about that on X the day of the reconciliation. And you have a chief, I don't remember her name, from BC. She put a complaint to the police saying that it's a hate speech. So they're afraid. She knows, and we know that we are telling the truth. They don't like that. And actually, when I did that, the minister in Ottawa in charge of the First Nations, she wrote a letter to me, and she said that, it was not okay, it was not right to speak about that the day of the reconciliation and blah, blah, blah. But what was interesting, she was not able to tell me that what I was saying was not right. She just wrote about that day, why speaking about that. But, she didn't say, Bernier, you're wrong. She was not able to do that. So more people understand now that, all that must end, and the time is coming.
Yeah, we are just going to base things on truth and the facts, and it's like that movie. Who was it? Said you can't handle the truth, and then, they're going squealing and whining, and literally in the legislature in BC, you've got groups of NDP that, as Dallas Brody and Tara Armstrong are putting bills forward to get rid of these land acknowledgements. That people are actually weeping and in tears. It's really quite dark and disturbing, Maxime. But there was a real breakthrough in the news today that I heard. There was in Frog Lake First Nation, a member, Hans McCarthy, he just won a court ruling forcing disclosure of banned finances.
Oh.
And so that's got to set a precedent, right? Because we're like, where's the money? Like, show me the money. We want to know where all of this money is going, because the band members are waking up now and realizing that it's not just us white colonialists that are having a problem with this wealth transfer. The band members themselves are not. So with that, what is your position on the Indian Act?
Yeah, but speaking about that, I just want to let know to people, when I was a member of parliament and I was a conservative, what Stephen Harper did that was very good. We passed a legislation for more transparency with all the money that the federal government is giving to these bands and First Nation. So we were asking for transparency. when we passed that bill, oh my God, all the lobbies and all these special interest groups were there. But we were able to pass it, and that bill was enforced. The first thing that the Trudeau did when he went in government in 2015 is to repeal that bill. And there's billions of dollars that are going to First Nation, and we don't know what's happening. For us, yes, and we must be sure that, all the money that the Canadian taxpayers are giving to bands and First Nation, where that money is going, what are they doing with that? All that must be transparent. But our position on First Nation, there's we don't have radical racism in this country. I said that long time ago. But we have a racist act, the Indian Act. We must abolish that act, and we must have a new relationship with the First Nation based on property rights, on respect, because in a reserve, there's no property rights. You don't own your house over there. That's a collective property rights. And that's why they don't take care of their own. That's not their own. And so we need to have a kind of property rights on reserve, and we need to abolish the Indian Act to build a new relationship, and, no more. And what they did in Australia, they did good. They gave a lump sum to their First Nation. I don't remember how many billion dollars, but that was it. And after that, you are like us, no special treatments. So we need to build that new relationship with the First Nation, starting by abolishing the Indian Act for sure.
Oh, I 100% agree. I mean, they literally became wards of the state. And I think about it of my mom and dad. My dad was from England, my mom from the Netherlands. They came over after the war. They lived in poverty. Their houses were blown up. They came here with nothing. They're not getting reparations. They're not receiving any funds or anything for that. But the point is they worked so hard. They received nothing from the Canadian government. My mom, her four brothers, and my grandmother, they were learning English before they came, but they refused to speak Dutch in public because they respected Canadians, and they were so grateful and proud to be here. And that's the standard we've got to set for immigration. But the other part of it is as well that in the Bible, it says very, very clearly that when you enter a nation as Christians, that you don't sign treaties with them because it will come back to harm you. And I believe that there are so many things that God is doing in our nation as an answer to prayer. It says the prayers of the righteous will availeth much. And there's been many, many Christians praying for decades in Canada as we've seen it slipping away from a nation that honored God. We opened businesses on Sundays. That was a day for families to congregate and people to visit and to go to church and things like this. And so it's been this total breakdown in society. We removed prayer from schools. We opened up the door to same-sex marriages. And there's just been so many things in a decline. And this is one of them. And I think that God is breaking down all of the institutions that were built up that didn't align with his best for us as Canadians, and that there is going to be a great reset in Canada, just not the one that Klaus Schwab's is working towards. Although they are making these crazy advancements in British Columbia right now, and these land grabs, which is flowing over into Ontario and Manitoba and other provinces. But it's got to be a full stop on this. Every Canadian needs to be a Canadian indeed. We need to cut off the gravy train to the Indians. I never refer to them as First Nations because they weren't here first. They never built a nation. There was over 640 tribes. They're not Indigenous. According to the Indian Act, they're considered Indians, and that's what we'll refer to them. But we should all be considered equal under the law, and we all need to be proud Canadians. And that's where I don't want to hear about Chinese Canadians. Or so today, Senator Leo Huskias, I don't know how.
Usakas.
Yeah, he made some other one. Now we're going to have March as a month to celebrate Greek month. And it's just stop. Should be no Muslim month, no Sikh month, no nothing. It's all full on celebrating Canada. My parents were so grateful to come here. They helped to build a fantastic, amazing, prosperous nation that's being destroyed because we've moved away from that. And we've just got to get a reset. So we're coming to the top of the hour here. I'm so grateful always for the time that you put aside to spend with us, Maxime. But I just want to say, with the PPC's populist playbook, let's put it that way, looking ahead to potential US style disruptions under Trump 2.0, how can the PPC leverage, I don't want to say leverage momentum like on trade wars, resource sovereignty, or anti-globalism to finally break the two-party stranglehold and deliver a Canada First renaissance?
Actually, that's a great question, and I was in touch with our candidates last week, and we had a discussion about that. I said, you need to start your electoral campaign right now. Right now, go out there, speak with your friends, and because when the election will come, more people will know you, more people will know the reality, will know the platform and the fight that we are doing. So that's why it's important to have our full slate of candidates, and they are and they will be active right now. So, and also we don't have a lot of money to do advertising and to promote our ideas, but we are more present now on the TikTok, and I've been told that it's very important. Young people out there, and our videos are going well over there. I'm more present on social media, and people can go on our website, peoplespartyofcanada.ca. They can read our platform, they can donate if they want to help us. I'm saying we are doing politics differently because at every election, it's always the same platform with the same ideas, Canada First. And we are not like these establishment political parties that are doing polling and focus group and they are coming with a new platform. We don't do polling, Tanya, because we know that the population has been manipulated by the mainstream media, by the leftists. So we are there like you to promote our ideas and inform and educate the population. And I believe it's sad to say that the tougher it will be economically, I think the better it will be for the People's Party, because people will look at a real alternative. And we are, the liberals and the conservative, I call them the LibCon party. They have the same ideas, the same policies on the big issues, climate change, deficit, foreign wars. I can go on and go on. And people will look at a real alternative. And the fact that we are saying the same thing since the creation of the party, we are gaining credibility. And credibility is very important in politics. So that's why I think that the next election may be or will be our election and the populist elections.
Well, Maxime, that is what I pray for. I pray for breakthrough because, we see the conservatives. I just watched Pierre Poilievre as, he dresses up in a Chinese outfit and goes to, an Asian event. And then next thing you know, he's dressed up as a South Asian. And we always criticize Trudeau as Mr. Dress Up. And Pierre Poilievre is doing no different to appeal to those voters. And, if I was running for office, I would be appealing to the Sikh community and to the Hindu community and others. I would be asking them, why did you come to Canada? Did you really come here to transplant the failed foreign systems of governments and belief systems that you left, or did you come for a better life? And instead of challenging them that, if you want to maintain freedom and democracy, vote for me. And because I will assure you, I will assure you that you will have equal rights in this country, but they must be based on the foundation of this nation that was the reason for our success. And instead of political leaders doing that, they're selling their souls and they're selling out Canada and Canadians. And we're seeing the impact. And it's all for the almighty dollar. It's all for a vote. And I don't think they're taking a step back to actually truly see what the critical issues are that we're standing on and why we need them to be championing those issues, Maxime. And I know that if I had needed somebody to sponsor a petition for me, whether it was last year on a moratorium on immigration, I had asked Jamil Javani and the Conservative Party to sponsor that a year ago, and they ended up up turning around and giving me such a watered down version of it. I am just like, you are so pathetic. I don't even want that petition sponsored. I wouldn't even support that. So rather than compromise, I backed out. And I thought, well, this is something that I will make public. And I will continue to pursue the conservative MPs. If anybody viewing knows of a conservative MP that would, support some of the petitions that I'm doing, I would love to get them forward because they need to go before the legislature. There needs to be a vote on these e-petitions, because then when we go into a next election, we can take an account and we can expose who were the yays and who were the nays on these votes, and that will also impact the next election. So I really appreciate you. I appreciate your stick-to-itiveness, and that you continue to go no matter the criticisms toward you, Maxime, and you got to have big shoulders to carry the weight of a populist party, understanding that this is make or break for this country. And I hope that we can relay that message clearly to our viewers. And then finally, I'm going to ask our viewers to please give us a thumbs up when we post our Rumble video. We're just new to YouTube again because they totally had us full stop censored. We couldn't post anything until a few months ago, so we want to build that network up. But I used to get hundreds of thousands of views on Rumble, and now we're lucky if we get 1,000. So we are being censored heavily. So it is up to our viewers. The least you can do is help to share our information, share Maxime's information. He said that he has 70 candidates that, no, sorry, 70% of the candidates are placed. Go to Maxime's webpage, go and look up who the candidates are, see if you have somebody in your neighborhood and your constituent, and then go and look them up and support them. And then what I also want to say to your candidates is come and join Action for Canada, because we are educating, facilitating. There is an election usually every 4 years. Action for Canada is busy on the critical issues, and the people that are really involved with Action for Canada are some of the most well-educated people in the nation, who would be really, really awesome to run for office, but we can't lose them as chapter leaders. But if your people join Action for Canada, we would be happy to have that partnership between the 4 years of election. But hopefully an election's coming in a year, and that budget next year is actually gonna be opposed. We should be lobbying in advance, getting the Conservative Party ready, saying, don't you dare submit to this. We don't mind an election before Christmas if it's gonna save this country. So what are some closing words of encouragement or anything else that you would like to add, Maxime?
Yeah, thank you for all that. You're right about that. And yes, I believe that a lot of our candidates are members of Action for Canada. If not, I will speak with them because we share the same views. We are there to do the same. You are a movement. We are a political party with the same ideas. So that's great. I'm optimistic for the future. I know that it was tough the last couple of years. But I can tell you, I'm doing, when I'm traveling across the country, more people are coming to our events and they want to know more. They're more engaged. So I know that the time economically is tough, but people realize that we need to do something. And yes, if you want a real reform, you need to start at the political level. And so that's why I believe that the future is with us. And that will be our future, Tanya. And if people want to know more about us, they can always go on our website, People's Party of Canada.ca, or follow me on Twitter, Maxime Bernier, or the People's Party on Twitter, or Parti Populaire in French.
That's awesome, Maxime. I'm just, I feel like if there was just one or two PPC candidates that would get in, that would ignite the populist movement, that would move it over, so that it is incremental. It's one election after another that turns bad situations around like this. And as I said, El Salvador and Argentina, Italy, and in Europe, these are places where that is evidence and true, but we're not going to achieve this unless we're willing to, to create real change. So thank you again. God bless you in your endeavors and in all your traveling. And I look forward to having you on the show again.
Thank you again, Tanya. Have a nice evening.
You too. Thank you, Maxime. Bye. All right. Well, that was such an amazing show. I appreciate Maxime so much in the work that he's doing. He's always got a smile on his face, and I just give him so much credit because I mean it has been really hard times, especially after the last election, and so over and over again, conservatives are so afraid to make that leap from the Conservative Party to the PPC. And we just got to keep encouraging you. The future of Canada relies on this. At some point, if we had teams of people going door to door knocking during elections, you would be absolutely amazed by what could happen. Even if we got two or three in the last election, where the Liberals still. They say they won the majority, but I don't quite agree with that. I think there was some shifty business there, but it is what it is. I'm just saying incrementally, we just really need to work towards getting that kind of change going in Canada. Okay, so I've got a couple of quotes tonight, but first, I'm going to go with our guest for next week is going to be Danielle Pistilli, and it's actually going to be myself. I mentioned that at the beginning of the show, and so Danielle is actually going to be hosting the event. We're going to be talking about the amazing year that we've had in 2025, some absolute wonderful wins and incredible battles that we've been involved in, and then just the strategy and the plans that continue to move forward. So I hope you'll join us. We're also going to be doing a fundraiser. Action for Canada is not a charitable organization. I know everybody wants that exemption at the end of the year, but the organizations that you're probably looking towards for those tax exemptions aren't doing quite the work that Action for Canada is. And so we ask that you would, consider that when you go to give your year-end donations. We really appreciate it. All right, so our quotes, I'm going to start with two. I just came across this with this Henry Ford. It goes, 2% of the people think, 3% think they think, and 95% would rather die than think. And when I saw that today, I got a bit of a chuckle over it. And I would just think it's the critical thinking that as we witnessed during the COVID fraud, where people really got captured. And so the main reason I'm bringing this up is because Action for Canada, foundationally, what we want to do is to educate citizens, to educate them, equip them, and then to mobilize them. So help us do that. Like I say, share our information because I don't think it's information on this wide scale of topics that we're dealing with that you will find in other places. And then I've got a second quote by Henry Ford, and it says, if you always do what you've always done, you'll always get what you always got. and that again it's so true. Look at how over 10 years I've been at this. I started out like, hoorah, Conservative Party. I'd always voted Conservative prior to that. I started to meet with Andrew Scheer and I was less impressed and less impressed. And then they started to bring policies into the Conservative Party that weren't conservative. I saw them pandering more and more and compromising more and more. And then, this kind of thing really settled in. And it's like, when am I going to get a clue that the Conservative Party is not going to change? So then we need to figure out what kind of change is necessary. And that's why I had Maxime on tonight. Some of you are great Christian Heritage Party, supporters as well. That would benefit getting a Christian Heritage Party candidate in as well. The point is we need change, and we aren't going to make that happen unless we vote differently. So I have 3 scripture verses tonight that will encourage you. As there's a lot of Christians, and if you got a pastor that says, oh, we shouldn't be political, it's like, first of all, Jesus was like the most political person that walked the face of the earth, because he was always calling out the government and on the bad policies, which is of course what we should be doing, which is what the pastors should be doing in church. And they're going to be held to a higher account. Pastors are. It says that in the Bible, when they stand before God, because they have a flock, and that they need to protect that flock and lead their sheep. And they're not doing that if they're not talking about these critical issues, because they're strapped by a charitable donation, because they don't want to upset the government over something that they may say behind the pew. It's a nasty trap. So in Exodus 18:17-21, it says, Moses' father-in-law replied, this is after they, had the great exodus from Egypt. and they were moving towards the promised land here, and says, what you are doing is not good. You and these people who come to you will only wear yourselves out. The work is too heavy for you. You cannot handle it alone. Because Moses was trying to deal with everybody's complaints. And I mean, it was like so many people that had exited Egypt. It's like, how do you manage to take care of everybody's problems? So he says, you can't do this alone. Listen now to me, and I will give you some advice, and may God be with you. You must be the people's representative before God and bring their disputes to him. Teach them his decrees and laws and show them the way to live and the duties they are to perform. But select capable men from all the people, men who fear God, trustworthy men who hate dishonest gain, and appoint them as officials over thousands, hundreds, fifties, and tens. And so we are to be part of elections. We are to be raising up in the church good, godly leaders, men who fear God. And so please pass Exodus 18:17-21 on to your pastors and have a good conversation with them and start activating, and mobilizing within your church to help incredible people get elected at all levels of government. School board trustees, mayors and city councils, your MLAs and MPPs, and of course, your MPs. Will shift the direction very quickly, the direction that Canada is headed, and it will put us back on a right track. All right, the next verse is from 1 Timothy 2:1-2. I urge then, first of all, that requests, prayers, intercession, and thanksgiving be made for everyone, for kings and all those in authority, that we may live peaceful and quiet lives in all godliness and holiness. And so again, this is direction that we need to pray for our leaders. And sometimes my prayer is over Justin Trudeau and Mark Carney, either raise them up or take them out. And God throughout Scripture has done that when there were bad leaders, but he also appoints bad leaders for a time, because sometimes we need to suffer a little when we've turned our back on God. And I've mentioned that a couple of times on the show, and God's trying to get our attention. He's going to say, how do you like this secularism? How do you like multiculturalism? How do you like all these isms and turning away from biblical truths? It's not working for us. So we got to get right and get back to God, and we got to pray for our leaders, and we got to replace them if they're not honoring God. And finally, the final verse is, if you don't stand, it's from Isaiah 7:9. It says, if you don't stand firm in your faith, you won't stand at all. And I would say that. So anyways, thank you. Thank you for joining us on the show tonight. Again, I ask you to give us a thumbs up and share our information widely. Have conversations with people in your community and love on them. Have the patience to have conversations with them. Challenge their thinking a little bit so they're thinking critically. And you will be amazed at the response and the impact that you too can have right there in your community and your neighborhood. So thanks for joining us tonight. God bless you, and God bless Canada.
In times of financial uncertainty, securing your wealth is more important than ever. With inflation, market instability, and economic challenges, many Canadians are turning to one timeless strategy: precious metals. Gold and silver have historically retained their value, offering a hedge against economic turmoil and a safeguard for your assets. If you're looking to invest, there's good news for members of Action for Canada. We're proud to announce our partnership with Steve Merrill of Sun City Silver. Steve is not only a friend of the Freedom Movement, but he's also offering Action for Canada members exclusive access to some of the best pricing in Canada. Thanks to his extensive client base and affiliation with Silver Gold Bull, you can now secure your precious metals at incredible rates. Silver Gold Bull is a trusted Canadian leader with live pricing available 24/7 and nearly 400,000 five-star reviews on Trustpilot. When you purchase through Steve, you're not only investing in your future, you're also supporting the Freedom Movement, as a percentage of each sale helps support Action for Canada. Plus, there's a bonus. If you place an order of $5,000 or more, you'll receive a 1-ounce pure silver bullet, a unique and valuable addition to your collection. And if you refer someone who places a $5,000 order, you'll get another silver bullet as a thank you. To get started, Visit actionforcanada.com/purchasing-precious-metals/. Remember, your decisions are your own, and we recommend doing your own research before making any investment. But with Steve Merrill's guidance and our partnership, you'll be on the right path to securing your future. Secure your assets, protect your future, support the movement. Visit us today to learn more.
Virtuous heart if you are here today pursuing freedom and righteousness. And then verse 23 comes along with a promise. God says he will turn the sins of evil people back on them. He will destroy them for their sins. I take great comfort in that because I serve a mighty living God who has allowed us to go through this season of discomfort because we as a nation have turned our backs on him and we need to get right. So I am just going to thank you so much. I'm going to say God bless you and God bless Canada.